Good evening, good evening, everyone. It is May the 14th, 2020, and I am Mary May from Butterfly Love. And I am coming to you as scheduled for our mental health moment chat. We're holding space for emotional wellness, and I am looking forward to our conversation today because we are going to jump in and talk about behavior, actions, communication, and accountability, and how all of those merge together in regards to how it is our mental health is influenced by behavior, actions, accountability, and communication. It's like when I was planning this conversation at the beginning of the month, I was like, wow, all of these things work together. They complement as well as they can be very toxic towards each other as well. So I did prepare some specific notes because I wanted to make sure I didn't forget any of the nuggets that was going to help you pour into your cup that is half full and not half empty. So if you would like to share in your network, I appreciate that before, after, or during. If you're watching on the replay, please share your feedback. Otherwise, joining me live, I welcome conversation, questions, thoughts as we go along for this scheduled time of an hour to just kind of work through stuff, just so that making sure that what you need to grab away from this conversation, what you want to land, that you get it. So the only way that we can exchange that is if you pop your question inside the either on Instagram and or here on Facebook, and we just go from there. So for those who do not know me, I am a relationship therapist. I do individual, couples, family, and group therapy. I specialize in trauma, depression, and anxiety, but then I also have a little niche and around working in violence in our community and violence in our relationships as well. So if you follow me, you'll learn that, I'm very experiential, try to give metaphors to make sure that things are clear, and just open to having a genuine, relatable conversation because sometimes we look at the word as mental health as being taboo and that we don't want to talk about it. But the reality is, especially in these times that we are experiencing in 2020, it is precedent that what was just generalized mental health and emotional wellness before 2020 is now even stronger that support is needed. So the conversations that we have on Sundays at 4, Tuesdays and Thursdays at 6 is to be able to pour into you so that you can just kind of make sure that you're staying on tap. And if you feel that I am the person that you feel connected to that can kind of work you through certain journeys, feel free to reach out. Okay? So, with nothing further said, let's jump into it. So, I could talk behavior all day long. And it's probably because of the journey of my experience as a clinician for over 2 decades and some change. The things that I have come across regarding people watching, some people like to do people watching. People who enjoy people watching are people who enjoy watching behavior. When you peel it back, though, and when you look at what exactly is behavior, like what is the impact of behavior? And, we don't really think about it. We think about behavior and actions kind of interchangeably as things that just kind of happen or that they're just natural to our every day to day experience. And that is true to some regard. But behavior from, I guess, a behaviorist, clinical therapist, when you breaking it down, like what is behavior communicating? Behavior communicates either something that you're trying to get or something that you're trying to avoid. So are you trying to get someone's attention, or are you trying to avoid maybe say the consequence that exists by being connected with that individual? So it's like paying attention, being aware, recognizing when your body is communicating to you several things that may be competing agendas, may be competing red flags, or just maybe competing love, love moments, because it doesn't always have to be toxic or negative, but that tends to be when we begin to pay attention and sit back and say, okay, well, wait a minute, let me think about how this person's actions or behaviors may have changed in some particular way. And when you look at that, you're like, okay, well, were they taking from me? Were they, was I able to offer something to them? Or were they trying to avoid maybe accountability or avoid the content in the conversation by saying, I'm all right, it's cool, no worries. All of those can be like displacement of really avoiding real talk conversations, especially like when you're talking about in relationships. And something else that's like a nuance or something that's very important to me is recognizing that when we talk relationships, we're not just talking relationships from you to a significant other, or you as a parent to your child, or you as interrelating with someone else, but your relationship to your entire spaces in which you exist. So it could be food, it can be exercise. It could be how you travel. It could be in your career and how successful you feel that you are in your career or not, or what goals you have, related to, where it is that you choose to excel. All of that requires you to show up in your authentic space of who you are, and that you're paying attention to different ways that you communicate. Now, if I was speaking with or about children, I would always say that children don't have the narrative to kind of really understand what it is that they what they need, or how they can say how they feel, what they have permission to do or understand, and their body just becomes very, very restless, and they usually communicate to us with behavior. If it's a little baby that's hungry, what do? They cry, they become colicky, they communicate to us. They communicate with the language that works best for them. If it's a child that's in school and they're unable to be comfortable in their seat, or they're fidgety or something like that, it could be that they're uncomfortable and they need a break, maybe just a stretch break, maybe just a brain break. They need some level of a break, and they can't say, can I have a break? Or can we just play a song real quick? Or I need help with reading and math. And if I don't get help in reading and math, and you may call on me, my behavior turns into anxiety. And then, therefore, the anxiety drives me being inattentive, disruptive, acting out, doing all types of things that is just not in alignment with where it is that we should be at that particular moment. And when you think about that, like that's the example for children, adults do the same thing. They avoid those real talk conversations. They avoid confrontation and believe that confrontation is always negative. And it truly is not necessarily always a negative, because confrontation can be a space in which you are looking at, are you right? Are you wrong? And is it building you weak or strong? Now, I know some people that may follow me worked with me in a community where we did normative behavioral shaping type situations. And that was one of our statements. They ain't say it as calm as I just said it. We'd be like, yo, we confronting you, right or wrong, weak or strong. Like, where you coming from? And it would be a sense of a red flag to say, you know what? Okay, wait. What did I just say? What did I just communicate to that person? And am I not communicating what my intentions are? So then my actions play and feed all into that, and then therefore the person on the other side is letting you know how they're reacting, or how they're responding, or how they heard what it is that you said. So it's like, if they have the narrative and the ability to communicate that, then it helps you to also have the ability to say, okay, what can I do different, or what can I develop for this particular conversation that's going to make the outcome of it and the outcome of our interaction to being a positive outcome. Because oftentimes what drives, say if we even add our relationship to social media, what drives our behavior or our actions to post certain things, if social media is a really strong factor in your life, you're looking for what the interaction is. And your behavior and your adrenaline is seeking that, but it's like you're looking for validation versus, is your content providing value that is going to build the individual to the places that they need to be built. So it's like, recognizing, what behaviors, how it is you're communicating, what is the tone. Hey Tanya, thanks for sharing. What is your tone? What is your posture? Are you are you in someone's personal space that's causing them to be uncomfortable? You don't know one's journey. And personal space or tone of voice can be something that really sets the difference in regards to how you communicate to someone. And that communication drives how they respect or honor your space or the time that they are with you on a one-on-one or a day-to-day basis. So you have to definitely be mindful of how it is that your behavior is either avoiding something that's really, really intentional or really, really important to the opposite person that you are speaking with. And if you intentionally just say, no, I don't want to hear that, then you may not also want to find out, what does your no in that situation communicate to the individual to indicate what, how much value or how important your conversation truly, truly is. So it's like, in thinking about that, you have to be very, very mindful in regards to your behavior and your posture and your tone and how it is that you are. If you're like resolving a conflict, or if you're working through like trying to understand, how do we get to a conflictual space and how can we move out of this conflictual space? Because you don't want to stay in conflict, because conflict breeds a ground for unhealthiness. Because we know that mental health and medical health is one conversation. Most of the times when we look at it and we hear about it, they separate it. They make mental health like an a la carte. You put a coat on, and during the season that you need the coat to cover yourself, that's the only time. But when you break free out that coat, apparently you are healed and there's no other situation. And that can't be the furthest from the truth. Sometimes you need that armor and that shield, be it a coat or be it your meditation, be it foods that you build your immune system with. However it is that you create spaces so that you can recognize your behavior and how you're walking into situations, will help you have much more success with reading why people are reacting and responding to you in the way that they are. So when you think about boundaries of that, like, you communicate to people what and how it is that they respect dealing with you. So one of the things, and like I told you, I wrote some notes down just so I could make sure that I covered some very, very specific things about talking about behavior, actions, communication, and accountability as it interrelates with mental health. So just being very, very mindful of that. So boundaries is the struggle of finding balance between the people pleasing in you, the ability to say no, and to also recognize when enough is enough. So usually this is for the sake of your own well-being. Like, if you have difficulty saying no, recognize no is a full and complete sentence. Oftentimes you may hear people say, let your yes be a yes and your no be your no. I believe that in this series, I probably have utilized that in a couple of the conversations. But if you vacillate on the platform that you feel is your boundary or the way that you communicate to other people, then that gives them the playground to just say, okay, well, I know that if they may say no here and they stand strong on their no here, they may vacillate or they may give me permission to just kind of do what it is that I need to do in the space to kind of get what I need, because behavior is always to avoid or to get something. So a person who is, trying to manipulate or identify how you're a support to them, their behavior is often usually assessing how it is that you fit into their puzzle of life. So it's usually at this time, if you have open boundaries and open behavior that, is communicating that, you're opening the gate of when someone, well, no, you open the gate to your level of mental stability or emotional stability when you begin to survey and ask others their opinion of something that you find value in, or something that is very important to you, or a characteristic about yourself that you want more detail. You end up inviting them by just simply saying, well, what do you think about, this thought that I have, or what do you think about this idea that I was thinking about promoting out on social media, or all of those things. If you have created the idea, if you have created the space, then it's good for you to be able to go and just say, okay, how can I create it? Let me stand in my truth. Let my behavior reflect my intentionality around what it is that's going on. So, if you ever think about, when people don't agree with what it is that you're saying, and when they don't agree, when they react with anger and hostility to you setting boundaries, or setting the behavior, being clear on your actions that you have, and just having an intentionality, you begin to find the edge of where they respect you and where the respect for you ends. Because in that regard, if they need to respond to something that you're saying with anger or hostility, that means that you have gone across the line that they have set in their behavior and in their respectability for how it is that you fit in, as a puzzle piece for them in their life. And if that is the case, then their respectability ends by the fact that they feel they have to like raise up or be very aggressive and anger and everything towards you. Sorry, I need a drink of water. If you're just joining, my name is Mary May. I am a relationship therapist. I do individual, couples, and family therapy, and I am coming to you in the space of mental health or wellness, and basically just wanting to talk about behavior, actions, communication, and accountability. And so far we have clearly talked about behavior. We have talked about how it looks, and we've also talked about how people respond to us when we not necessarily challenge them, but we definitely challenge them in their thought process on how they interrelate with us, and how it is that they respect what it is that we have to offer. So if we offer something different and they come out with some hostility and some anger, we might be like, okay, where is this coming from? Like, who are you talking to? And even when we say who you talking to, your response and your tone may communicate displeasure. But have you been that people pleasing personality to them before? And have you always said yes to them before? And now you have had a sense of wellness and redirection of your spirit and your energy and how it is that you're choosing to move forward. And now it doesn't fit the mold in which how they manipulate or how they feel value to you, or they need something from you. Because remember, behavior is to avoid or to get something. So another quote that I found in regards to that was, and thank you, Rich, for your comment, and Veronica, yours as well. Um, it's funny how people get upset when you hold them accountable for their actions. So I guess we could, talk about accountability. So accountability usually is you again being clear on what truly is important to you, but then being respectful of your space. And your space is not just where you live, not just your car, not just your workspace when we were at work, but it's like accountability to the conversation, accountability to what you said you were going to do, and being able to follow through with that. And if for some reason, because things come up, we're human, things come up, and if say like you set a certain respond by date and you're not able to get that content to the person at that particular time, you should responsibly have a conversation, plan an email, whatever it is that you need to do to be like, hey, I thought Tuesday was going to be my deadline and being able to get this to you. Or I thought Tuesday was going to be the day that I was going to be able to help you move or pack or come over for dinner. Whatever it is, be responsible, because your behavior of not and just being dismissive to that communicates something different to whomever it is connected. So, project that you're supposed to do, meet somebody for dinner and you just don't show up, you don't call back to follow up on a conversation, like whatever it is, your intentions are clearer when you talk about it. So if you're avoiding in the aspect of behavior, that aspect of behavior is really the intentionality of, okay, are you avoiding doing whatever this task is or just being responsible? Like, again, let your yes be a yes and your no be your no. And recognizing that no is a full and complete sentence. So if the reality is this person is asking you to do something or your services are being requested for something and it's outside of the scope of what you normally do, or even to reflect the agreement that you may have with them, you need to say, you know what, this is not realistic. I thought it was something I was going to be able to do at this particular time. And either can we talk about a different respond by date? Can we plan another day that we can meet up for dinner? Can we, just kind of push the envelope and the time frame in a different way, because it may be requiring more of me than what I initially thought about. So it's like, thanks, Kelly. Hey, Kelly. That's a best way to be responsible and be present to all things that are important. And it's like not minimizing any particular aspect in regards to just recognizing what is going to get you over that hurdle of being stuck and just being nonchalant, and that your actions and how it is that you address and interact with other people, that you're like, well, you know what, I've always been like that. Well, if you've always been like that, at a certain point, either we need to disconnect and not have the relationship that we've had up until this point, or we need to consider how it is that we need to work better either together or around each other or in support of each other. So, it's like having the confidence to kind of really stay in that space and just, again, confrontation is right or wrong. It's a compromise. Right or wrong, weak or strong. We build each other up to be stronger when we have healthy confrontation. So we think about that word confrontation in a very negative, defeating type way, but there's a such thing as healthy confrontation, because if you don't allow others or even a project that you're working on to know that something is not working right in your energy, in your spirit, in the space, you thought you had availability to take this project on, but something is just changing as you do more research. Be authentic. Don't have that behavior of avoiding and not responding to the phone calls, not answering the emails. Be very clear. And in being very clear, you will have less headaches, you will have less body pain, you will have less any body ailment that is connected. Because if you realize at the time, if you are a person that functions in avoidance with your behavior and your actions, at the same time that you are avoiding, you definitely are connecting that to symptoms that you are feeling of your health. And because the health is what usually drives us. If you're a self-employed contractor, you need your health to be at 100, 1000% at all times. So you need to really be responsible around how you are accountable, not only to yourself, but and yourself should be first. Like, you should always know what your capacity is, but then recognizing, okay, when is it going too far? And that may be a realignment, reassessment of what your boundaries truly authentically look like. Thank you, Veronica. So, actually, the next quote I have is about the body. The body can literally reject someone's energy. So, when somebody is approaching you, or you're in a phone call, or you see their name pop up on your phone or in your email box, and you have some kind of emotional, physical symptom that constantly occurs, you need to check that, because that is your emotional wellness gauge letting you know that it's something about this energy, this spirit, this project. Maybe I shouldn't be involved. And when we allow us ourselves to be authentically true in the spaces that we interact with, then we end up having the opportunity to move forward in a way that it helps us recognize when anxiety is making itself present. And when your anxiety starts, it's acting up because it's bad energy that's disrupting your spirit. And you need to listen to your body. Listening to your body is like the gateway, the truth, the authentic of everything that you need to be able to stand in your current space. And recognizing, boundaries are your responsibility. You decide what is and what isn't allowed in your life. Let me say that again, because that was like a, past the offering plate. Boundaries are your responsibility. So if boundaries are your responsibility, your behavior is your responsibility, and true authentic accountability is your responsibility. You say what is or isn't allowed in your life. And when someone violates what is or isn't, and probably more so on the isn't allowed in your life, then you give them permission to continue to do that over and over and over again and not think about it. So then their behavior communicates to you that, oh, you allowed me? Great. I'm so glad you allowed me to do that, because now I know what you say isn't appropriate really is if I just dangle a little carrot or give you a shiny object, or, for a couple of days shower you with love and kisses, or a promotion and extra money, or, extra projects to kind of work with me. Then, that is definitely, when people know. But again, the accountability, your boundaries, your behavior, your actions. You are the compass. You control whatever it is that's saying what is allowed and what isn't allowed. And if that might be the game changer in regards to you recognizing how often you have the conversation about what is allowed and what isn't allowed, to determine if I'm about to sneeze. Oh my gosh. Determine if, in fact, you need a mediator, or if you need someone who works with people and their behaviors, which would be a therapist or a psychologist. It could also be a life coach, but they can only take you to a certain level because they don't have the clinical background. It may be somebody else in your life that kind of works in these particular spaces, but everything comes to a certain line. And it's like once you stay in your lane and you ask people in your cabinet of support to be in their lane, you build a bridge of community around how boundaries and your behavior still maintain as being your responsibility. So people will only do what you allow. And I'm sure, in many cases we've heard that. So accountability, you can either have results or excuses. You can't have both. It's just plain and simple. Like, you can't have both. You can have results from doing great work, from recognizing your behavior, from knowing, you might be with person A or in project A, and you know what you could do there, and it's acceptable on that is and isn't, approvable guest list. But when you think about, okay, when you get to session B or person B or project B, you have to function differently. So, and in functioning differently, you now either choose to respect the person's space, respect their voice in the conversation, or you choose to just be disruptive. And if you choose to be disruptive, again, it's up to that person to determine how often they allow you to be that disruptive energy, that disruptive person, that disruptive space that interrupts what their intentions were. Remember, behavior is communicated best with you trying to avoid something or to get something. So you got to be mindful of that. So your personal accountability would be requiring mindfulness, which is like meditation, relaxation. It is your self care versus your self management. Self management would be those things that are just important to you in your routine. So if I was to use my self management versus my self care is I need a massage once or twice a month. Need. Yes, I said need. It's on the budget line. I need my hair done, depending on the style, once to twice a month. Self care management, nails done outside of COVID, once or twice a month. Okay? Those are self management things. Self care is that authentic, confrontational relaxation, mindfulness, and meditation that you create space where you totally unplug. You totally do a personal assessment of maybe your pros and cons throughout the week, your interactions, looking at how you interacted with somebody. Could you have done something different? Do you need to create a space of accountability in any particular way that you may have allowed to be one of those it is or it isn't type spaces, and that you need to realign what's going to work best for you? So it's like you need to have a sense of mindfulness. And then secondly, you would need to have a place of acceptance, realizing that the authentic you that you've been presenting and believing was going to be the reality, then it changes. So you have to recognize, okay, what changed? Did I change? Did they change? Did the project change? Did the setting change? Did something in the environment trigger my behavior to go from getting something to avoiding it? Like, it's so many ways in which things play a part in how it is that we interact and how we present ourselves with others on a day-to-day basis. And just being honest around what it is that you need. And even if what you feel like it is that you need is not necessarily what someone would agree that you should prioritize, it's not up to them. Because remember, when you invite someone's opinion in on what it is that you have to offer, then in them doing that, they begin to have more influence, more control, more say so in what your right and wrong, weak or strong is. And the confrontation and the conflict that you have begins to change its narrative to what they feel is important to you versus you still being the CEO and managing your space appropriately. Remember that if they come to you and they're responding from anger and hostility, it's because you're not functioning or performing in the way that they felt was your designed and appropriate space to be in. So it's like you didn't solicit that. You're soliciting what your authentic space is and your behaviors and your actions and how it is that you communicate that with effective use of accountability. And remember, your body is going to communicate when entering into these different spaces, conversations, when it's not helpful or when it has some kind of sabotaging or unhealthy boundary like within it. So if you think about people who are constantly in that anger or hostility mindset or energy space when dealing with you and trying to accept what is doable or not doable, um, they may function from a space of manipulative behaviors. And those manipulative behaviors is that they do not understand the concept of boundaries. So they're not recognizing any behavior cues that you may be sharing or demonstrating to let people know that it's not a comfortable space to be in. And in doing so, their pursuit for your attention becomes very relentless and disruptive to your thoughts of them, your thoughts of the project, your thoughts of like going to a certain place or receiving a certain phone call. It's like, okay, they are going to be pursuing what they want, how they want you to act, what they want you to say, how they want you to say it, what they want you to wear, how they want you to present yourself, all of those different things. And these things not only happen in our intimate situations or intimate relationships with our significant other, our children, and family members, but it definitely also occurs with in your workplace, because abuse and people not respecting your boundaries can happen from your boss, can happen from your supervisor, because their intentions and their behavior may have a different outcome of intention than what it is that you are prepared to provide. So if they do not understand the concept of boundaries, or the fact that you are inquiring more information about what is happening, um, then you have to basically, recognize that there's something that needs to be done differently. And otherwise, if they don't get what they want and they have no regard for who gets hurt along the way, why would you want that type of energy in your project, in your relationship, in your workspace? Again, what did we say? You are responsible for what is and isn't in your space. So who will be held accountable? You will be held accountable, because now whatever situation has been communicated to you that didn't agree with you, or didn't set right in your energy, who's sitting back and thinking about it over and over again? And who's the one that's sitting back saying, okay, well, what could I have done differently, or how could I have done this, in this particular way, and said it differently, wrote it differently, responded differently, delivered the product, in some particular way? The common denominator is you. And if the common denominator is you, it's like, okay, what support do I need to put in place to really navigate these situations, because they continue to rise to the occasion? Now, they may continue to rise to the occasion daily, they may be weekly, might be once or twice a month, or it could be every 3 to 6 months. What transition do you find that you're going through where you're thinking that your behavior has been appropriate and somebody else is saying that your behavior and actions has not? And what is the value that you place on their opinion in the next steps of how it is that you're going to function and be in that particular space? Because the whole thing is that, I'm looking for this one quote that I wrote down, that I said it already. Where'd it go? There we go. You can't have results and excuses at the same time. So the choice is yours. Like, you just really, really can't. Like, they can't be both of them working together. It can't be 50% in, 50% out. Like, you gotta put your full 100% in your ability to say, you know what, my accountability looks like this. And my accountability says that we need to have a courageous conversation to really authentically look at how X behavior or X situation creates conflict for me, and how it creates conflict to take me off my square, or create like anger or hostility, or the fact that I am now taking mental space and time where I'm sitting back trying to think about, okay, what I could do differently the next time I interact with you. That's too much work. Like, that really is just too much work. So the mindset is all it's all about mindset. Um from the moment that you wake up to the moment that you lay your head, it is about mindset. So in thinking about the mindset, from the time that you wake up, everything, every moment, every breath, every action, every inaction is up to you. Every emotional response or lack thereof, how you shut down internally, is all up to you. Your emotions, your thoughts, your perception, your reactions, every single moment is up to you. Because the question you have to ask yourself at the end of the day, when you're looking at how this impacts your emotional wellness on a day to day basis, you have to take inventory of the time. And time is currency. When I say that, you are paying and spending more time into the situation than they are. They've dropped their negative energy, they said what they had to say, and they're moving on. Whereas your time has stopped in this moment where you feel a violation has occurred. And until you're able to, make that assessment of accountability to say, I don't need to be in this interaction, then you continue to welcome that opinion and welcome that energy to a sense of how it is that you interrelate with other people. And then the question you have to ask yourself is, if their absence brings you peace, you didn't lose anything. If you're not feeding into their behavior, their manipulation, their intentions on, you being and acting in a certain way, there's no loss, because again, you're standing in your authentic self, and it takes work. But once you do the work for it to just be authentically how everywhere that you go, everywhere that you exist, remember your relationships to exercise, food, significant other, children, co-workers, bosses, whatever is important to you in all of your spaces, you are the navigator that's making it authentically true. And so it's like, if you are the common denominator, then you definitely are the gatekeeper of how it is that you maintain. Are you people pleasing? Are you saying that enough is enough? Is your no and your yes? No being a full and complete sentence. Where do you stand in all of that? I need some water. Thank you guys for the comments too. Are there any thoughts or any questions that you have? Because I've shared a lot of information, and I want to make sure that if there's anything that is resonating with you, or like you're saying, okay, wait a minute, I understand this. I see the preach. I see the snaps, the indeeds, the beautiful accountability is the mirror. Like, I see all of that. So I just want to make sure, or the very true and the 100s and the thumbs up over here on Instagram. I just want to make sure that it really, really is landing, because we are coming to where I'm winding it down, and I want to give you the opportunity to ask questions, or share your thoughts. And thank you for those who have shared it with others. So before I go into like setting what the healthy boundaries and positivity in relationships are, let me just also remind, because there may be people who are connecting and contacting me for the first time. My name is Mary May. I am a relationship therapist. I do individual, couples, and family therapy, as well as groups. My focus has been anxiety, depression, and trauma. And I also work with an affinity around violence in the communities, how it impacts us from suicide, bullying, domestic violence, teen dating violence. Um, and I think that's it. I think that's it. So feel free to follow me on my business page, Butterfly Love Consultations, and be able, to reach out to me if there's any way that you find that I can support you. So setting those healthy boundaries. Now, my notes are definitely like good right here. So when you're setting the healthy boundaries, there are four areas that are important. You have to be led, you have to be direct, you have to resist arguing, and you need to take some space, because worst come to worst, you might need to just separate from whatever the situation is. So when you say being led, you want to make sure that if you are getting ready to talk to someone about their behavior and how their behavior and communication impacted you, you might want to consider writing down what you're feeling. And when you write down what you're feeling, you know what it is that you plan to say ahead of time. That might constitute like an email, that might constitute like a quick little outline, or just quick notes that you know what it is, and you plan your approach. Paying attention to your tone, your body language. Are you leaning in? Are you sitting back? Are your hands folded? Because nonverbals are communication as well. And as you're bringing something to someone that you feel has violated you, you know that they're going to respond with defensiveness. So their defensiveness, excuse me, and their reactions can cause a disruption in the intended process. So that's the reason when you function from it, you being led, you clearly write down everything that you want to talk about so that you cover everything. So just as essence as I made sure I wanted to, the notes and nuggets that I wanted to make sure you got, I made notes. We're not in confrontation, we're in love, and we're sharing, emotional wellness so that we can be better individuals. But it's about preparation, because had I had all of this information, and I probably have way more that I could share with somebody if I was working with them individually. But the thing about it is there were certain nuggets that I wanted to share with you, and you make the decision on how it is that you implement them. So being led, You want to just make sure that you write everything down beforehand and organizing your approach. Because in that way, you will communicate clearly as opposed to feeding into the behavior of disruption. And being direct, you're confronting things head on, but you don't want to be rude. The intention is not to be rude. The intention is not to be conflictual, or like, you just create an awareness around what it is that they have done in their behavior. Remember, the behavior is to avoid or to get something, but people go to large extent on what that actually looks like. Um, that disrespected you, because if it's a behavior that they always do, then they may not recognize or see that what they did was disrespectful, because they've always done it, and they can't learn what it is that they did until they have that authentic conversation with you. So resist arguing, because remember, their defenses are going to be at 1 million, and it probably will you might be able to get some of your things that you've intentionally written down out, but if they could begin to react either with the anger, the hostility, or defensiveness, they're going to say stuff that's going to make you want to try to draw you in, that's going to distract you from what your intended conversation is. And doing that, you have to resist the fact that you're not trying to instigate, you're not trying to create, some kind of physical interaction or altercation, but in recognizing that there's nothing else that we have to do, because when emotions are high, so are defense mechanisms. And people who function from the defense mechanisms function from that victim mindset, that, okay, well, how can I get you to now focus on me? Like, deflect anything that you felt was valid and important on the reasons why we had to have this conversation, to now be something that is all about them and how it is that you hurt them. And it's like, if it goes that way, you might want to validate some of the things that are being said, depending on the relationship and what the purpose of the conversation is, like what you intend to be on the outcome on the other side. But you may have to say, okay, you know what, we need to separate, because this is not healthy at this particular time, and we're not going to get the goals of the conversation completed as long as you're being defensive and reactive and degrading and pointing the finger. So that might be something when you have to resist the arguing, because the arguing, they know how to draw you in, and you have to reclaim the emotions to a place of self-control so that you can retain, and possibly retain another time that you could revisit this conversation, so that it could be with the love of accountability. Because if accountability and the person constantly gets angry and hostile when you want to hold them accountable to their behaviors of avoiding whatever the task at hand is that we've kind of discussed earlier, then you need to let them know that. So if you're taking some space, sometimes the complete separation is necessary to regather what is important to you, take inventory on what you were able to cover, and if there was things that you didn't cover, are they necessary? Because is it truthful, is it helpful, and is it necessary? Those are three words that I tend to say when trying to identify the purpose and the outcome. Like, is this the conversation, or are there behaviors disrupting your emotional wellness so much that you need to really consume yourself with so much energy around it? Is it truthful, helpful, and necessary, and what is the steps to resolve it, not only for you, but for the overall intention of your connectiveness to that person. And so you can reassess the situation and determine if there's so much energy and aggression that comes up in the workspace. You have human resources, you can contact human resources. You can contact another supervisor on your unit or another leader in your unit to be a mediator that knows what the project, calls for. If it's in your home, then you can decide if there's a family member that you feel confident enough that won't take sides. Because when they take sides to the unhealthy narrative, it's like they're co-signing that any violation that you felt was disrespectful is okay. So that's when personal families and personal connections may or may not necessarily be the best resource. And when someone who does coaching in that area or therapy in that area can kind of be the best impact and influence to supporting your conversations and the outcome that they have. Um, and the worst come to worst is that you just have to remove yourself. And removing yourself to meditate and to replant seeds of positivity. And when you're replanting those seeds of positivity, you have the opportunity to, okay, so I don't know what just happened. You have the opportunity to foster the relationship the best way that you can. And release the energy of the conversation and the person from your day to day thoughts and your day to day actions. In order for you to have healing, you have to be authentic in your space, and you have to recognize if their absence is bringing you peace, then you didn't lose anything. Are there any thoughts or questions, any comments, any feedback that you would like to share at this particular time? As the intention of the emotional wellness chats is that we are on for an hour, and that holding space to just kind of recognize, whatever the topic is, peel it back so that you can walk away with your cup half full and possibly all the way full. Maybe I added enough seeds and plants for you to be like, you know what? I got enough seeds and nuggets now, and it's triggered some thoughts for me, and gives me that opportunity to just say, you know what, this is what I could do differently. So I know that there's some technical difficulties happening actually with both platforms today, but more so with Facebook. So I hope that you guys, I see that there's still recent comments, that you're still connected. But what are your thoughts? How can I support you in the remaining few minutes that we have together? Very helpful information. Thank you. Thank you. Does it improve how it is that you look at yourself and how it is that you function in relationships and in life? Thank you, Lisa. Long time no see. Hugs and love. Um, is it anything that I can add, in regards to, you know, I just want us to be well. And sometimes when it comes from, like, me being a relationship therapist and individuals that I come across, when they come into the counseling room, when they come in, well, now the counseling room is by way of video. It's like they have all of these thoughts, and you don't often look in that mirror of a reflection of what part do you play in allowing um this life and situation to just kind of exist. So it's like you have to look at, again, remember we were saying, I'm like, okay, I can't find it real quick. Let me see if I can find it real quick. You can either have results or excuses, but you can't have both. The choice is yours. And then the responsibility of how people know what is and isn't allowed, again, is up to you. Once you cave and not standing your truth or what your authentic space is, then your behavior communicates to them that they can just pretty much interact with you in any way possible that doesn't, shift their universe at all, that is not inconveniencing them at all, and that they can just continue at the same status quo that they have always done. So it's like, okay, do I get peace when you're not around? Do I sleep better when you're not around? Am I able to get my exercises done, my workout schedule? Am I more productive when this task is not in my immediate thought process and space? Like, when you realize that, then you realize how much of the conversation you need to have or don't need to have. And it's like that really is your gatekeeper overall, and paying attention to people's behaviors. Behavior defined as people want to either get something from you, gain something from you, or they want to avoid any accountability that you may be putting forth. So thank you again to those who have shared your feedback. Thank you to those who have shared the video with your network. I did see a couple notifications coming up through my phone. I appreciate your support of me and the conversations in which I try to pour into other individuals. And next Sunday at 4, Tuesday and Thursday at 6. The schedule will be posted as far as what the planned conversation pieces are on Saturday on the Butterfly Love consultations page, as well as on my Instagram and personal slash business Facebook page community as well. So thank you guys for joining. I don't see any other comments and questions. And I look forward to connecting with you all in some fashion or form. If it's a quick text message of love, or if it's just follow up regarding this conversation, or even you just listening in for the rest of the month with us. So, again, thank you for your time today. Thank you for the opportunity of allowing me to pour into you and your emotional wellness. And let's just be well together. Take care and travel safely. This is Mary May from Butterfly Love.